We're back for season 2.
Yes, it's bigger. It's badder. It's
Oh, just get on with it.
badscripts.
Good evening and welcome to Badscripts. It's time for another fantastic guest episode. And joining me as always is no other than the wonderful Mr. Mike Garlia. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Steve. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm really excited. I don't know about you.
I can't contain my excitement. That is how my voice is going higher because I'm that excited.
It is. It's probably our most exciting episode yet, and that's saying something. We've had a lot of fun over the last sort of year and a half, but I think it's this one has tickled the anticipation nerve with us and some of our listeners who are in the know as to who we're talking to today.
I think it's because it was the hard to get notion of this one. So we had to track this person down globally. We had to go through so many agents and publicists and so many people that we knew. And you know, when you finally get to speak to that person, it's just sweeter. And the fact that we've managed to attract that person to a humble little podcast is amazing.
Well, I think with that kind of a build-up, I think it's only right that you introduce our guest for tonight and bring her onto the show.
Well, our guest tonight is a very accomplished actress, dancer, and musician, much like we have on the show in the past. She currently resides in a very tropical location, which we won't name, just in case you decide you want to go out there and start hunting this person down. She's gone right through the industry from a really early age, is very refined, very well trained, and is also a member of a very successful pop group. Please welcome onto our show the amazing, the wonderful, and the incredibly talented Ms. Ria Scott. Hi, Ria.
Hi, that was the best intro I think I've ever had.
Wow. Well, we'll take that. That's going on the banner. That'll be that quote we're going to have on the banner there.
Yeah, who cares if it's lies? You literally just messaged me on Facebook because we're pals. But
So how do we know each other? That's probably the best place to start for our listeners. How do we know each other?
How do we know? We worked together, didn't we?
We certainly did. A long time ago.
A long time ago. Yeah. You reminded me 20 years.
Yeah, it was another century when you started. If you think about it like that it was the 1990s, wasn't it? Technically.
No, this was 2000s. This was
1999, was it? Oh, was it?
No,
really.
So I started there where we worked at the I said yes, 1999, because I remember we were like, what's going to happen with the millennium? Are the computers going to go down? And they didn't. Nothing happened. But yeah, then it was in the 2000s. We just scraped into the 2000s, didn't we? When we worked together.
Yeah, we did, and we were members of a cast of 10. And we were part of a gang of actors and dancers, and we would do lots of shows with the State Circus in Moscow and lots of different things. And how many shows did we do a day? Roughly about 5.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I remember thinking it was really hard, but like looking back now, how easy was life?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah, I used to moan like, oh, I'm so tired. And then you grow up and have kids and it's like, oh, why did I think I was tired then?
But it's all perspective, isn't it? And that thing, if I think about doing 5 shows in a day now, I get tired just thinking about that.
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't matter. They started at noon.
Yeah. But it was what, 6 days a week back then as well. So there was no real let up, was there? It was. And
6 days a week, 30 minutes, 45 minute shows on average, and then around an hour rest period in between.
Yeah, about that. Enough time to grab a Burger King and go back to the dressing room.
You could have.
I remember. I know. That's it. That's all I ate every day. Which is funny, seeing as I still love fast food.
Hey! And we'll get on to that a little bit later. A few people might have put some clues together as to what that might mean. But we've spoken to a few people who've been in the holiday entertainment industry. And I guess we just wanted to get your opinion on, how you felt back then, what your overriding emotion is when you first joined a place like that. We've had quite a few people say to us it felt strange. It was a little bit alien, and they felt like they were almost imposters coming in, and like all these other people knew what they were doing. But for
Yeah.
yourself, how did you feel when you first arrived on site and there's all these other people?
Yeah, so the same. So I did my first season in one of the southern holiday camps, and I was like in Toyland, and I was narrating and with some of the costume characters. And I remember I had just moved away from home. I think I was 18 or 19, and I was very homesick, and it took me a while to kind of get to know like my friends and the casts. And so I felt, yeah, really lonely. And I was sharing a room with, I think, someone who worked in bars. So I was working in the day, and then I was coming home, and then she was going out. So I very rarely saw her. So I didn't even get to kind of bond on that front either. So it did take me a while to settle. But then, and it was a great first year, but I was still very homesick. But then I got the opportunity to move into more casts, and which is the one where Mikey was. And then I moved to like up north to a different one. And that's when I actually really felt I made a family. I really felt part of something. So yeah, I mean, the first year was great, but when I look back at the amazing time, I really think about that time and at that particular resort, which yeah, I even now, like, I wish I could just go back into time to that time with everyone. Like, even if I visited now, it would be so different. But it was just everything was just amazing. Like, it was magical. People were nice. The place, I have no bad feelings towards it at all. Can get quite emotional because even the people who I met there now, like, I still connect with them on social media. I still feel I'm like protective of them. Like, if they post something, I'm like, want to check they're okay. I still have a very tight bond, even though I haven't seen most of them for 20 years. You still have those bonds that will just never ever break. It's
I have some
amazing.
memories. I have some memories
Oh
too.
God.
all good. Because like you, I joined the cast in the same year that you did, and and there was very much that I really wanted that role. I really wanted to get into it, as everyone did. And there was some really renowned and established people in that cast already that had been doing that for a few years. You kind of step into shoes, and you're taking on other people's characters that have already been established before you. And you kind of finding your own way. I think that bond does tend to pull you together in terms of you're all going for the same emotions. And we covered this in the show, actually, with it's not something you really talked about back in the day. You didn't articulate it in a way to say, like, I feel a bit lonely and a bit lost, and I'm not sure I belong. You just kind of go on with it and hope for the best and hope that you weren't going to get fired or found out.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Because I never went to a stage school or anything. I obviously did all my local dancing, singing, and was involved in my local pantos and stuff. But I kind of felt like I learned everything I learned on the job. And you're right, like there's some people they're probably in the same step, but they're maybe 2 or 3 years more advanced than you. They went through it, before you. So you kind of look at them and think, wow, they're amazing. And you don't realize that then there's kids there who look at you and think, oh, wow, you're amazing, because you always feel you're a little bit behind them. So it's good when there's a few new people because you're all in the same boat together. But I definitely felt like an imposter, like, for sure. And I definitely, I think, improved a lot over my years that I was there. If I look back at the first show compared to the last show, they never gave us lessons or anything, but you just learn from other people, don't you? And
you did. And here's a question for you as well on that. So part of our latest run of episodes, we've established this character of a head girl, right? Which is something I forgot about. Now, we have a head girl too.
Yeah.
But no one actually told us what a head girl did. And do you know what a head? Can you explain what a head girl is in the sense of a production or a cast?
I don't know. Like, she used to run a warm up
and position you. I remember she used to grab you and stick you and stay there.
Yeah. Oh, I know. If someone was sick or wasn't able to make it, I think she was in charge of, like, telling people what to do. I don't know.
It's funny, isn't it?
Anymore.
Because it's one of those generic terms that you can just stick in and go, well, you've got a little bit more responsibility, but we'll give you this title and it make you feel good. But but to some
Yeah.
people it can go to their heads a little bit. I don't know if you've
Mm.
experienced a little bit of that, whether there was a sense of grandiose come from any of your
Yeah.
head girls.
Do you know what there was? And I actually still now, like, I love the head girl that we had, but I felt a bit, when I look back, I feel like it's a really hard role because she was one of us, and we would like go out drinking and we'd have, you know, it's fun together and we'd take the mick out of each other. But then every so often she'd have to step up and tell you off, or like if you're not concentrating or you're doing something, as she was told, I guess, by the highest, you know, you need to speak to this person. And it was never appreciated because it's like, who are you? Like,
who are
you're
you?
my pal. And then it was awkward. Then you're all going out, meant to be all going out, but you're annoyed because she's told you off, or given, you know, put you in the back when you wanted to stand at the front, or like, so it's quite a hard role, really.
Yeah, no, you're right. And position was so important on stage of who's front and who gets and again, the divvy up of because even you're in the cast, but everyone's still vying for position and space. Everyone's vying for the number one number or the main role in a particular show that we're doing. And when he gets the most lines, even within that close cast, it's still quite competitive, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I remember when there was a new show coming and you'd kind of all sing through the songs, and especially because I was one of the singers like there was like a few of us. Some were just dancers, some were singers. So if there was a song that I'd kind of, started practicing a little bit and I really liked, I thought it suited my voice, I remember one Christmas I didn't get to sing Joy to the World. And it was someone who I actually, in my head, I didn't think they were as good. They were a dancer, but they were given the opportunity to sing. And I remember being so peed off. And even when I hear that song now, I still think of the girl who got it. And in my head, I'm like, no, that should have been me. I still am a little bit bitter.
But I think
she did a great job, and she was brilliant. But I wanted that, and it's the competition, like, because you didn't get to pick or audition, or it kind of sometimes parts went to the favorites, which happens.
No, there was definite favorites in there as well. And it's interesting the skills you bring, because I was never a singer, but they kept giving me things to sing, and that was just
that was a bad idea, wasn't it?
Entire audience. So I think what part I think I did a lot of acting, really, didn't I? I did a lot of the presenting.
You were good,
the talking parts.
I noticed you started writing some of the shows, Mike, just to give yourself the right part. Was that not what happened in some of those Halloween shows?
We wrote a Halloween special because there wasn't any planned Halloween shows. So myself and another person wrote the Freaky Towers, this 2-parter. I don't know were you there then, Ria, for that?
I kind of feel like I remember Freaky Towers, but what songs were in it? I didn't remember you writing it though, but I was, probably preoccupied with myself. So,
and that's fine because I got to enjoy seeing a show. Because remember, there was a whole production wrapped around it, and pre-films, and bats turning into vampires and pyrotechnics.
Oh yeah, you wrote that?
Yeah, I did with the stage manager.
She's cool.
Anyway, but I do remember
one. Nice job.
Oh, well, thank you. 20 years later, I finally get the recognition. I'm now at peace. I'm now at peace. Now I can because I've never been able to put. No, I'm only kidding. But one thing I want to call out is something. That did happen actually, and this harks back to being lonely. And it was my 21st birthday, and I thought everyone had forgotten. And all day, no one had said a word. I'm 21, and I've got no family and all that kind of stuff. And I remember. Do you remember? I walked into the dressing room and what you guys had done. You'd done my desk and you'd put a cake on there and the banners and blue cards, and I just remember that feeling of walking in and just feeling belonged. And a little bit of love, and again, that's where the power of the cast came from to say, "Oh, look, it is his birthday today," and I think we've been rehearsing all day for stuff, and we haven't really had a lot of time. And that's I've still got the picture of that actually when we took a picture of it. But that's one of my enduring memories. So after all these years, thank you for decorating my desk.
I know. I remember. Do you know what I remember the most? I don't even really remember the thing. I remember just finding it hard to not say anything. Because naturally I'm like, happy birthday. I would be like that. So I remember having the whole day feeling bad, but also enjoying it because, we knew what was coming. But
I moped around like an immature little child of going,
nobody loves me. And did I or did I not wish you a happy birthday as well, Mike? You're making it sound like I didn't even say happy birthday to you.
You obviously don't count.
Well, no, apparently not anymore. I'm just taking for granted these days.
We have to face realities. I was cast at this point, darling. You were not cast. So we
right. So it could have been that. Yeah. I mean, I was at that time, I think I was running around in dungarees, throwing plates in the air and things at that point. So, or escaping from boxers or what have you. So who knows?
Yeah.
Or I was dressed as Santa if it was Christmas. It could have been anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
Bob a job week with me.
Yeah,
So
that's so funny.
in terms then of your career and what happened there, so you then, once you've finished at the, or you've got to the end of your second season, was it, or third, as a cast member,
Yeah.
what made you leave? Was it something else came up, or did you just feel it was time to go? Or
Yeah, so what happened was, you used to get that break before, before, like, I think it was the end of the summer season and then before you went in. So you could either stay and work in bars or you could go home and have the time off. So I always went home. I remember there was a bit of drama. They were saying who they wanted to keep for next season. So we were already had a contract for Christmas, but then for the February, March, that the following year. And I remember speaking to one of the main sort of stage lady who decided casts. And I remember having a really off conversation where she wasn't sure if I would be in part of the next year's cast. And I remember I was like, "Ooh, I didn't like that." I was really upset because obviously I wanted to stay there forever at this point. And so I remember speaking to my mom. She was like, "Come home, let's go to some auditions." And I was like, "Okay." Anyway, so came home and I happened to audition. That was in the stage newspaper, the old famous one. And I went to an audition for, I want to say it was, the Eagles, the band. It was for like a pop group to do Eagles covers. Random. Okay. I was going to anything at this point. I don't know whether you guys would say anything that said a female, this age group, then off I went. And I stayed to the end of it. And I remember in the line, I was like, okay, these girls are really tall. I'm really short. I really do not fit in. And it was like a management company who were putting that together. And it was at Pineapple Dance Studios where everything went down. And then at the end, they kind of spoke to us one by one. And the guy who was doing that, he said, "I think you probably know you're not right for this group, but I have another project coming up, which is a novelty group. But it's a pop song. It's a song that you might recognize, but we're going to make it into a novelty pop group, like the Cartoonies, that kind of thing. And we just think you'd be brilliant for that." So I was like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm excited or offended here. But I was like, okay, fine. So he said, but it's not going to be, we're going to kick things off next year. So this was like around probably October or November 2002. So then I knew I was coming back, and he said it's going to be 2003. So I went back and then while I was back, the lady who had said, "We're not sure," she said, "No, we definitely want you back. Definitely want you back." But I obviously then had this in the pipeline. So I was like, okay, well, we'll see. And I was like, okay. And then finished in January. And then the manager of the band phoned. He was like, "Right, we're going to kick off. We're going to start auditioning other people." Because I was kind of the first one in at that point. Wow. And he went through, he was like, this is the song. We're starting to write it, come down to the studio and like meet everyone. So I was there. Then I was helping with auditions for various, like, to get the guy in. They wanted 4 people, but we ended up with 3. And so then the manager, who had said she wasn't sure if I was right, then phoned at the end of the season and was like, "We definitely want you." And I was like, "No, sorry, I've got something else and I'm not coming back." So that felt really good, as you can imagine. And then I was off doing my band stuff.
So Ria, I have just before we get into this big reveal of that next stage of your journey, and some of the things that we've covered as part of our episodes, and I'm sure you've listened to some of it, is best and worst auditions and experience. And I've revealed quite a lot in terms of my worst, and not so much on the best. But are you happy sharing? What is the best audition you've ever had? Apart, obviously with the one you just told about. But what's the worst audition and why?
Oh man, there's so many. I remember. Well, I don't know if it was a worst audition, but I remember I'd gone to an audition which was fine, and then I'd got through to the next round. They said for the next round, this is the weirdest thing. You had to learn all of the words to, basically had to remember the words. It was a reggae song. and I had to learn them all, and it was quite difficult. I was there, like, it was before, like, the internet wasn't like a massive thing then, so I was listening, trying to like play, rewind, and I remember I must have spent, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks trying to learn this song, nailing it, all ready to go. Didn't hear anything from them. Chased them, didn't hear anything. Chased, didn't hear anything. And never heard anything again. So I must have wasted so much time learning a reggae song that I never ever got to sing. So that was pretty bad that they just never got in touch again and made me do that.
And just to be clear, you can't remember the song, right? Just because
you could sing it for us. I mean, you're welcome
reggae?
to have a go.
Okay, maybe it isn't reggae. You know, "Turn Me On" by Kevin Little. Hang on, I'm going to play it on my computer right now. Can you hear it?
Yes, yeah.
I learned the whole thing.
I do remember it now, yeah.
So yeah, I know all the words to this. I had to, and it took me ages. Because no, internet wasn't really. And you're whining on me.
Amazing.
There you go. So that's when.
And you did you do the rap reggae? Did you do the rap reggae?
I did the whole thing.
You did the whole thing.
Wow. The whole thing, because I didn't know. I was like, I'm going to really work hard on this. Yeah, this is it. And then that was it. I got ghosted.
Oh,
I don't know about you, Steve. I just really want to hear Ria's reggae.
Yeah, I mean, no. but so you probably will remember that into your old age. You'll remember that song and every lyric of it, and every time you hear
forever and ever. Yeah,
you get that flashback to not that kind of that anger at never being called.
But sometimes if you're out on a night out, that might come on in a club, and all my friends are like, "Wow, you love this song, huh?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah."
let me show you how I did it. Let me just show you. Because I did a very different composition from the original, which was an improvement.
Okay.
As we know, I can't sing, and I once found myself on stage in '99 trying to do the rap part of "It Wasn't Me," and failing spectacularly because I couldn't keep up, and B, you need a certain rhythm to do that.
Yeah.
And I just failed. It was once, and people cheered, but they cheered out of pity.
Yeah, it was a sympathy clap.
It was a sympathy clap. Yeah,
it was a sympathy. It's fine. It's still a clap. You can take it.
But you know, getting into the arts, Ria, and from a young age, and deciding that this is the path you wanted to take. What advice was given to you in terms of being ghosted and not being successful and picking yourself up? Do you remember any advice that you was given?
No, I wasn't. I just got to the point where I was like, you can't cry over everything. I didn't have, it wasn't really like that then, was it? It was, I didn't know anyone else any of my friends other than outside of like from work, like you guys, but in my real life, I never had any friends who wanted to perform or wanted to go into that, whoever went to auditions or anything. It wasn't a thing.
And where were you from originally?
From Watford.
You're from Watford, so
Watford,
a Southern girl, you know what I mean? I don't know why.
Mike, the accents again. We've talked about this. His Dick Van Dyke is incredible. That's all I'll say.
Really is.
Yeah.
And now you've got this absolute explosion of reality stars and reality shows. Towie and all these different things, and there's easy ways. If you're in the right place, the right mind, the right sensibility, and the right look, it's quite easy. Whereas back in the day when we were starting out, it was a real scramble and a hustle, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I remember like doing like promotional work and trying just to get money to get on the train to get into London to go to these auditions. Like it was a real effort every single time there was an audition you wanted to go to, and you really. Or like trying to ask your mum for some money, or like trying to work, trying to save. I was doing loads of babysitting and like just saving the cash to go to these auditions. It was unlike now where you can have like Zoom things, or it's much easier. But it didn't feel particularly hard, but it was, wasn't it? It was a hustle.
And I think the other thing was, like you said, I think for both of us, we didn't have a lot of friends outside of that circle that were involved in performance. I don't think they understood about the level of rejection that you're constantly facing this rejection, and the effort and the sort of assumption that it's all glamorous, and then you go, but you should see the state of some of the places I go to audition, and the grotty rehearsal rooms, and it's not what people envisage it to be.
Yeah, like all those dance studios where they held all the auditions, or like, yeah, I used to walk for miles like through London to like a random recording studio or a random dance studio in a hall and like queue up for ages for these things, which my mum didn't really know where I was going or anything.
I know, right?
I would
Completely
never, yeah, and I would never be like that with my kids. I'd be like, I'm coming with you. Because we didn't have, did we have mobile phones then or not? We
I
probably
think there
did,
was
but
a
there was no
start.
text messaging or anything, was
Yeah.
there?
Well,
It was,
I'll give you a little hint, Ria, and I know you started listening to a few episodes of the podcast, but there
mhm.
is one that Mike reveals his worst audition, I think, and I won't say it because it's gone in the podcast, but listen
Okay.
out for it if you do, because it eclipses anything I've heard of anybody in terms of if some man in a hotel room tells you to take your clothes off and you're on your own with him,
God.
maybe it's not a legit audition, but I'm not going to say any more. I'll let you find that gem
Okay.
yourself.
He
All
had
right.
a camcorder and a stand. He was legit,
Yeah,
especially when he asked me to do thrusts and squats with no clothes on and talk about why God loves me. Okay,
yeah.
it just seemed right at the
Oh,
time. It had
mate.
to be
Oh
right.
my God.
But
I'm
we'll
never
stop
gonna
Well, I'm
let
there.
it.
glad I
I'm never
wasn't
gonna do this.
actually.
Um,
Yeah.
Well, Ria, one audition that you did succeed in that you've just been talking
Yes.
about, and one of the stories you just gave, and I'd like to just give you a little introduction before you reveal who this is, and
Okay.
because we're really keen to talk about this one, and we've got a lot of listeners that will probably be really excited too. We are sitting in the presence of someone who's had two top 10 hits. A number 2 in the UK charts of 2003, a number 10, and then a number 25 Christmas song, and that is absolutely flipping amazing. And hearing that they built the band around you as that core element is wonderful to behold. Ria, what band was you with?
Dun dun dun. The fast food rockers.
The Fast Food Rockers.
Yeah.
And
FFR, as we like to call ourselves these days.
yeah, well, that's cool. But there's the kind of the early noughties retro thing going on now. Everybody's sort of really harping back to it. And I mean, I'll go back to that time. And me and Mike were both working. We were both entertaining in Europe at the time. So we were hearing the song, but we'd
Right.
never seen the video or anything. So we didn't know that we'd met you, that we knew you, and so it was kind of really random. We got home a couple of years later, and suddenly, oh my God, that's Ria. What? And then it was like, wow. So
It was you that told me,
Yeah.
actually, Steve, wasn't it? You was
Yeah.
like, the Fast Food Rockers. I was like, that the Pizza Hut song, and you went, yeah. You went, that's Ria in there, and I was like, no, is it? And then I was like, and honestly, it blew my mind. I was like, right, I've got to Google this and I've got to see it. And there you were, just doing your thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I think they had the idea. The song was it was the song, right? They just needed, then they just wanted a band or people to kind of front it. So yeah, we just got lucky and we were the lucky ones who got to sing and perform. And it was great fun. Yeah, definitely. I would say the cheesiness that they probably saw was probably what I learned from, back at the holiday camp, that stars cheesy. And I think that kind of has followed me through my life now. But it was, it was really good fun. It was busy. I actually got to go back to the holiday camp because, they used to have performers and people coming. So I got to come back and perform there. And so I got to see everyone that following year.
That must have been amazing.
Did you get to be the diva? Were you a diva, Ria? Did you get to be the one putting that rider in and saying we only perform if we get all of these kind of things?
No. Do you know what? We did have a rider, but our manager did it, and it was like he was really conscious because it was like a kids band. He was like really conscious, and because there was quite a little bit of backlash about that we were promoting unhealthy eating, promoting fast food. That it was our rider was a fruit platter and water, and like. It was so boring.
So there wasn't expensive vodkas and, there must be white kittens in baskets and things. It was all more.
That would have been my preference. But yeah, no, there was nothing. It was very, very boring and sensible, unfortunately.
Cool. I'm really interested in that dynamic of you going back to the place where they would understandably think you started your career here and we gave you this platform to build upon. How did that come out at all? Did they want to talk about that? Did they take any kind of, I suppose, glory for your successes?
I don't think so, no. But it felt weird because it's funny because when you hear back and like 20 years on, when I think, oh yeah, I did have it was a number 2. I think it was like number 2 for like 8 weeks or something. Like it was a big song in that summer in the UK. And I think when I look back, I'm like, yeah, that really was. But when at the time, you don't feel like it is. Like when I was back at the holiday camp on that stage, I just felt like I was back on the stage that I'd done, 6 months prior. And when I was on TV and I'd watched the TV, it felt like my mum had just put a video of me in my dance show or performing. So you never really appreciate it, I don't think. Even at the time when we were there at like premieres and meeting people and feeling starstruck, but you still, it's that imposter syndrome, and you still don't quite feel like it's real, and you still feel the same.
Real's 150,000 sales. Oh, we did our homework a little bit. 150,000 sales of that song alone, which is mind-blowing, to be perfectly honest with you. And
exactly.
When you're riding the crest of that wave and you're number 2 in the... I mean, how did it... Right, so I'm getting excited now.
Calm down, Mike.
When you were told that you hit the top 10, how did that feel? Can you remember how that felt when you're like, you've got a top 10 hit?
Yeah, so you're nervous. So it's funny because the way it was, I don't know if it might have changed now, so 20 years ago or 19 years ago. It was because like when you say like 150,000, it's like that's physically someone going into a record shop and buying it. So they had so the shops would then tell you, I think it like around a Wednesday, like a midweek chart. So you'd have an idea of where you were. And then usually that would then be the Sunday. So you kind of knew. So it was always exciting. It's scary. Like, where are you actually going to end up? But you always had an inkling where it was, I remember being super excited, but disappointed. It's like, why is it not number one? Who's number one? It's like nothing's ever good enough, is it? It's just, but it was, it was super exciting, especially when it continued and it was like, week after week, people were still going out and buying it. And, when you get to 7 and 8 weeks and people are still going and you're still number 2. And then Evanescence was number 1, Bring Me to Life.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They stayed number 1. We just could not beat them.
They were. They must have been quaking in their boots. They must have said, look at this band coming after us, and I'm gonna. And, wouldn't it have been great to have knocked them off the top spot?
It really would have been.
but to say now, and the many times I've been on a holiday since, the kiddies' discos, every time they're still playing the song. My kids who were born, 7 years later, know it off by heart, and they sing it, and they were so excited that we were speaking to you. So you can sort of think about the longevity of it and the fact that you're still in, that song still exists in that whole kind of zeitgeist of the early noughties and that party scene that it was intended for. So you should take great pride in that, I think.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's funny because it's obviously the videos on YouTube, and it got to there was a lot of, one of the versions, it had like a few million people had viewed it, and it's like, that's crazy. And the comments, people are still today like commenting, and it's funny. I like to read through it and hear people's opinions, and some people are like, what is this? Never heard it. This is awful. Other people are like, this reminds me of my school disco. This reminds me, and they're the nice ones. It's like, I have songs that remind me of everything. That music is such a big thing, probably is to you guys as well. But when you think, actually that song as well, while I was there, doing my little thing, that song reminds them of a time in their life. So it's really sweet to see those things, even now that it's people still commenting on there, which is lovely.
And that whole approach of, I'm sure we all did it, with a hairbrush in the living room, miming along to songs, imagining yourself on a broad stage and stuff. Really, you've lived that dream. You've literally lived it and reached those heights of fame, of and I know that's not why you got into it in the first place, but to be successful and then to keep inspiring generations like Steve Kids, that's still, they were really excited. They were talking about it. Everywhere you go all across Europe on holidays, this song comes on at the mini disco. It's a mainstay. That right there must be mind blowing to you. Or maybe not mind blowing. Maybe you have enough time to kind of go, we did that, and that was a moment in time. Any reunions? Because there's a whole nostalgia thing happening right now where lots of bands are getting back together. Is there anything? Are we going to see the Fast Food Rockers come together again?
Do you know what? We have a chat, a WhatsApp chat, and we send each other voice notes. We chat constantly, so we still do keep in touch. And I would love to do something. And we think, maybe we might, but it's difficult because I'm obviously where I am here, and then Martin he's actually moved back now, so they're both in the UK, Martin and Lucy, but he was away. He's a Latin American dancer, so he was part of the Dancing with the Stars franchise, I think, in Lebanon, and so he was been away, and so we've all been away. So it's hard. We're all in the same place at the same time, but I'd love to, but it's like how, I don't know. We're getting a bit old now.
No, not at all. But I think the life gets in the way, doesn't it? And you move around the globe and stuff. But but it's nice to know that you all still talk, because you hear a lot of stories about people who were put together in groups and they don't get on. And hello, looks like we've got a little visitor.
Oh, hi, Georgia.
It's okay. Hello.
Sorry. What? Okay, can you go and lie down? Georgia. Stay there, but be quiet then. She's like, what? She doesn't get it. It's funny that because she sees the video, like they like the song, but then she doesn't really get. She's like, why are you talking about that? Why are you talking about that?
One day it's going to be really weird, and they're going to go, "Oh my god, that's Mum! Wow!"
Mom.
And it'll be yeah. Exactly.
Do you still have the costume, Ria? Do you still have the sets and the costumes?
Do you know what? This is a funny story. So there was a problem towards the end of the band. It kind of finished because there was money issues, and like our record company and our management, they had a disagreement, and so we were kind of caught up in the middle of it, like not sure what was going on. And then randomly on social media, I spoke to our tour manager who used to drive us around, and he said that because we were talking about costumes and I had no idea where it was. He said that the company that he had worked for actually kept those costumes hostage because the record company or the management company, I'm not sure who owed it, didn't pay their bill. So they were like, well, we have your costumes and we're not returning them until the bill was paid. So I don't know whether the bill was ever paid or those costumes probably didn't really, I don't know if it was leverage enough for that bill to be paid.
Free the rockers' costumes. That's the new campaign. We're going to take it.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
they'll be sitting in a lockup somewhere. Now, can I ask some,
or in a bin?
Can I ask some naughty questions? If that's okay.
Go on then. Yeah.
Depends how naughty they are, Mike. Really, doesn't it?
Well, we have some of our guesties, and we've had some others on the show that interview quite a lot of celebrities and stuff like that. And I've got to ask you, in terms of your circles and the people you've met along the way, especially during that time, who was the funny celebrity you met? And who was the absolute pain? And you don't have to give names, but I'd love some juicy, gossipy stories here. You must have a couple.
I know. So everyone was really nice because you do like radio road shows and stuff. So there was, I can say the band. Am I allowed to say the band?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So do you remember Liberty X?
Of course.
Yes.
So we saw them a few times and they were very friendly, apart from one of them, Kelly. And I remember Lucy, who was in the band, actually lived or was really good friends. Sorry, I think she was really good friends with the guy that Kelly was living with, or vice versa, or Lucy had lived with someone who's a good friend. And Lucy was like, "Oh, hi, Kelly. Hi, I'm Lucy." And she was like, "Oh, hi," turned her back. And Lucy was like, "Oh, I know so-and-so, I can't remember the guy's name." And she was like, just blanked her. She was so rude. And I remember every single time we saw her, then like Michelle and the other girl, I can't remember her name, and the guys were all very friendly because we'd see them. You do this whole summer of radio road shows, and she was definitely the rudest. So rude.
Well, thank you for being candid with that. No, it's great you see, because you never know, because you see people's public persona, and some people appear so nice, and we've met people, and you think, wow, you are really not who we thought you were. And I mean,
maybe she was having a bad day, but it's like it was so rude that she just literally turned her back, and mid-conversation it was like wasn't even engaging.
Let me ask the obvious question: did Liberty X ever get number 2 and 150,000 sales?
I don't know, probably.
No, sometimes they were sexy, weren't they?
Yeah,
everything about them was so sexy. Yeah, so probably.
And if the band of Liberty X want to come on this show and defend themselves and explain their rudeness, then absolutely,
we will accept an apology on your behalf as a group.
Yeah. So, do you know, my other favorite celebrity chat was, I remember I was at the GQ Awards and I remember seeing Charlotte Church, and she walked into the bathroom. I loved her. So I was like in the bathroom, I was like, oh my God. And I was like trying to position myself. So when she came out by the sinks, I would say hello. And so she went into the toilet and I was kind of waiting excitedly. And then she literally went to the toilet and then walked out, did not wash her hands.
Oh,
I know.
This is a
Wow,
reveal.
it
This
is.
is real. I know. So maybe she was like, "There's a weird girl. Like, get me out of here. I'll use hand sanitizer." If it was a thing back then, but
Maybe she
I
had
know.
some wet wipes. You don't know, do you? It's
You
but
Don't know.
Maybe it's a Welsh thing. I don't know.
it could be,
Yeah,
yeah.
it could
Maybe
be.
she was a
Martin
foot.
was Welsh, so
Maybe she was a
And
foot stamper. We don't know. In terms, so in terms then of you've done all this stuff. Then when we think back to your holiday entertaining days, you kind of touched on the fact that that helped you a little bit with the whole cheesy side. So
yeah,
do you think, because everybody that we spoke to, and no matter what kind of career they've gone on to have, something that they did in those few years has really stuck with them and kind of helped them in their other careers as well. So did you feel like something that happened during that time, or some of the education that you got informally by being in that environment, really gave you a helping hand to
yeah,
deal with some of that?
yeah, for sure. And I think, especially with like the kind of positions that I had there, a lot of it was you do your show on stage and then you'd meet and greet people or people in the audience. And I remember with that, however you're feeling, you have to be happy, you have to have a smile on your face, and it doesn't matter what you're feeling because they can't see it. And I think that's definitely helped. Like I really am very conscious now that it doesn't matter what I'm going through. I don't want to project that onto somebody else because that's not what they're here for. And so that kind of smiley face has definitely got me through, and I actually think is good. I've worked with people who kind of don't have that, and they come into work, they've had a bad day outside, and they make my life and everyone else around them feel very uncomfortable, feel very, can be very toxic. But I think having that, being able to separate your real life and play this character, or it's even if as a, you're there with your own face and your uniform, you're still a character, and just being able to have those two separate things, I think I've always that's always shown me through. And
Fantastic. No, and that's great to hear, because I mean we look back now, and I don't know where 20 years have gone. I don't know if you feel like that sometimes, but you can look back and you can think, oh, that was just a little moment in time. But I feel like, and Mike, you'll probably agree, it has left a little bit of a legacy, doing what we did. And you've gone on to perform at on a national stage, or an international stage, should I say, not to do it a disservice. And it's great to hear that there was some foundation in what gave you the ability to succeed at that. So that's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It was definitely, I don't know whether it was just that stage in your life is where you learn a lot of things, but I really feel like it really shaped me as a person. Like, you can kind of be whoever you can be yourself there, and there's no one judging you, and there's anyone you're happy because there's no limits on who you are, and you can be whoever you want to be. And I think that's the best thing about that place. I think
there was a lot of reinvention went on, wasn't there? A lot of reinvention.
Yeah.
People moved there and they created their new persona, who they wanted to be, not who they'd been in their hometowns and who they'd grown up to be. So
yeah, no, it was refreshing.
I've got one more question for you, Ria, actually.
Yeah.
And that is, you've accomplished quite a lot in your career, and you've done some amazing things. You've inspired new generations with your music, and being being established in that band. Question is, have you, in terms of what you wanted to do with your career and what you have done with your career, is there any regrets? And have you done everything you wanted to do? Did you scratch that itch, or is there still more you wanted to do?
Do you know what? I remember when the band finished, that was we kind of were like, oh, do we carry on as a band and like maybe do like a theatre tour and like try and do like kids shows, or do we leave it? And I remember we were like, well, let's just leave it. It all got a bit too much, a bit intense with arguing not within the band but within like our kind of group and our management and stuff. And we left it. And I always think back, that was probably the wrong decision, because I loved Lucy and Martin, spending time with them. I think I kind of cut it short and maybe cutting my nose off to spite our face a bit. But then also on the other hand, I was kind of ready. to be able to commit to things. Like, you know what it's like when you're in entertainment. I'm doing this. This is my birthday party. Can you come? What? Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. And then you miss things. And I kind of got to the point. So after the band, I did panto, and I was still auditioning and doing, you know, some session singing for album. And but it's all bitty, and you can't ever really commit because you just don't want to commit to something else and then a job come in.
Yeah.
So I was also kind of ready to let that go. But I now, like, if I go to the theatre, there is that streak of jealousy that I want to be performing again. And so, yeah, I don't think it ever leaves. You know,
No.
I always want to do it, even though I might not have, I don't know, I might not have the courage to do it.
Well, it's funny, you know, a lot of frustrated performers start podcasts, apparently. So we've heard.
That's the case, right? Holding on to your past as long as you can.
But not all do successful podcasts, unlike you guys. You guys have done really well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Ria, we want to say thank you for taking the time out of your really busy schedule to come and speak to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've had a lot of fun talking to you, and it's been great to get down memory lane.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I miss you guys. It's so nice to speak to you and catch up.
Well, will you come back?
Thank you.
Will you come back when you've listened to a little bit more and you might have a review? Would you come back, and can we cast you when we finally make it into a feature-length film?
My God, yes! You have to cast me.
Well, that's
I would love it, and I'd come back.
We're going to need a feisty choreographer at some point. So it depends if you feel like you could, if you could pull that off, then the role's yours.
Oh, yeah. I kind of want to hear you guys doing it.
Well, it may or may not have been inspired by a choreographer we once knew. So
yeah, I know. When you say feisty choreographer, it's like, okay, gotcha. Say no more.
Exactly. Fantastic.
Back at you. No, it's lovely. It's been nice catching up. So thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us here on the Badscripts podcast. We'll see you next time. Join us here live for another episode. Until then, we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Badscripts was written and performed by Mike Garlia and Steve Jones, a Beach Tide production.